All right, welcome to RTF Sports Talk. I am the host, Michael Buckheister, on this fine Tuesday morning. If you guys are joining us on YouTube Live, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc., go ahead and follow that. Give us a 5-star ranking. Like it, share it, comment. But as always, we're here with Billy Hatton and Matthew Lyle. Matthew, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's a hot one again, so ready to talk some sports.
It is hot. Billy, how you doing today?
Tired as hell. Been up 4 or 5 times in the middle of the night. That's cool.
Hey,
That's
welcome to parenthood, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and get right in it so Billy can get some sleep here in about a half hour. So, first thing that comes to mind here is college football is less than about, 4 days away? Football's here, y'all. So, with me and Matthew being in the Louisville area, we want to talk a little bit of Louisville football. Even though we despise Louisville, we're going to talk Louisville a little bit. So, Louisville versus Alabama, Saturday. If Louisville beats Alabama, is that would this be a bigger win for Louisville or a bigger loss for Alabama? Matthew, we'll go ahead and start with you today.
So after last time's show, I decided I'm going to be a little bit more direct and not just take the easy way out. I'm going to say it's going to be a bigger win for Louisville because you need that if you're Louisville. As far as the grand scheme and the big picture, it's going to have no impact because we've talked time and time before. Alabama can lose the first couple games of the season, and guess what? As long as they're good in the SEC and SEC tournament, SEC championship game, they're going to be in the playoffs. And as far as Louisville goes, I've seen it with Louisville. The year they had Lamar Jackson, it was actually being talked about to be in the playoffs. They're going to crumble down the end. That's kind of what a Bobby Petrino team does. So, yeah, it's going to be, for the small picture, it's going to be bigger for Louisville. It ain't going to matter for Alabama. Alabama's going to get it together, still be in the playoffs, more than likely. And Louisville, they're going to talk for about 3 or 4 weeks until it comes time for them to play Clemson, Florida State. And if it's not one of those two teams, don't be surprised if they get caught up at a Wake Forest, at a North Carolina State, at Kentucky. So it's going to be a little bit of a thing for Louisville, but in the big picture, it's not going to make a difference.
I'm going to need Matthew to stay out my head, man. I'm right there with him, man. It does nothing, especially for Alabama. The committee is going to see it as an early loss. They're trying to get their footing together. They didn't know which quarterback they wanted to go with, Jalen Hurts or the freshman from last year. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But for Louisville, it gets you an early win. I guess you could say it's bigger for Louisville because that'll be, one of those good notches on their schedule that they beat the number one team. They beat Alabama. But like you said, you're still going to have to face Clemson. You're still going to have to face Florida State. So, the job is not done right there. For me, it does nothing, especially for Alabama. Louisville will boost them up a little bit. But overall, to me, this one is a meaningless Week 1 game. Not meaningless, but in the grand scheme, the overall picture, I don't think it does anything for Louisville because I see them at least losing a couple more. So,
and I definitely
don't be surprised. Right, and don't be surprised if it doesn't come. Just a couple. Imagine. I'm not saying that this is going to be an instant loss for any Louisville fans out there listening, but you upset number 1 Alabama. You do got Indiana State and Western Kentucky at home. I don't see those being much of an upset. But then you go into on the road to Virginia. They've already lost there once and struggled there the second time. Don't be surprised, especially if you get that talk in your head, hey, we beat number 1. The fan base, when we talk about playoffs, I think actually I'm going to even take back even further what it means. I actually think Louisville may not even go to a decent bowl, if a bowl at all, if they beat Alabama. This team being so young, I'm looking at their schedule.
They got a tough 6-game stretch.
Go to Virginia, then they host Florida State, then it's Georgia Tech, then it's on the road at Boston College where they struggle, then it's on the road at Clemson, on the road at Syracuse, NC State, Kentucky. You beat Alabama, this fan base is talking playoffs, you might go 5-7. You lose
Easily.
Alabama, you keep it somewhat. You lose Alabama, you keep it somewhat close. You might be able to go 7-5. So I'm actually, just kind of to go out on another limb there. It might actually, for the first 3 weeks they might be hooting and hollering, but once they hit that buzzsaw of their schedule, they might go 5-7. So
yeah, it's going to be really tough.
And then once you fall to 3-4, it's hard to turn it around and get to a bowl game from that point. Trust me, as a Kentucky fan, I know. Once you fall 3-4 and you see that there's some winnable/losable games down the home stretch, that team starts to look a little better. That opponent that you're facing. So I think it's not going to have any impact at all, really.
So
yeah, I
I'll
definitely agree, man. Yeah, I definitely agree with him. It means nothing.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Maybe a game that means a little bit something. Washington versus Auburn. Do you guys think the winner of this pretty much has a smooth sailing to the BCF playoff?
I wouldn't say smooth sailing. I guess it would help both, their playoff resume. But as far as clear path, I wouldn't say that. I mean, Auburn still has to play Alabama like they do every year in the Iron Bowl. So, you win this game, you beat Washington. They still have LSU in week 3, then Arkansas, and then they still have to play Mississippi State. They're going to play Ole Miss, Texas A&M. We know Jimbo Fisher can cook up some guys. We see what he's going to do in his first year down there at Texas A&M. And Washington, I mean, they still have to play their schedule. The Pac-10 schedule, maybe the Pac-10 or Pac-12, I should say, is probably not as good as they once was. But there's still some capable teams and still some losable games on that schedule. They still have to play Stanford. They still have to play Oregon State. They're at Washington State, which could probably be a trap game for them with that offense. So clear path, no, but I think either team that wins will be on the right path to win, especially Auburn being in the SEC.
I think this also, a lot of times when it comes to me and Billy, it comes to whoever gets to answer the question first gets to really lay the groundwork. But I'm going to say, so in the sense of literal that, yes, the winner is 1-0, so you still stand a chance to be in the championship. But it's the same way that if Kentucky beats Central Michigan this week, they're technically on the road to the championship game because the schedule provides it. If they beat everybody on their schedule, but do they really stand a chance? No. So, like you said, Billy did a really good job of outlining why Auburn's got a lot of speed bumps. Washington, not so much. I don't see them beating Auburn to begin with. And if they do have a pretty favorable schedule, but they have the committee to worry about. And if you look at their schedule right now, they have 2 ranked opponents, Oregon later in the season, and then, of course, Auburn first game. And then whoever would be in the Pac-12 championship. If they don't demolish those easy games, the committee's going to say, no, we've gone without Pac-12 teams before. We can do it again, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did. So
that's definitely true.
Auburn,
believing that.
The winner, yes, not technically, does stand a chance to get to the tournament because you got to go 1-0 to go 12-0. But I don't think this gives any team a clear path because Alabama does have the SEC West, or Auburn has the SEC West, including Alabama, and Washington has the committee. And if you're not beating these teams like a struggling Utah and a struggling Cal team, you're not going to get you're going to just continue to fall. You're going to be one of those situations where, yes, you're winning, but teams are just jumping you like crazy. So I don't think it's a clear path for any of these teams outside of the possibility that you're 1-0.
I mean, and to add on to that, we're going to talk about Florida State in a few, but go back to Matthew's point about if they don't demolish these teams, that's the same thing what FSU had to go through back in 2013 when they were just saying, well, it is the ACC, so if they're not beating everybody by 30 and 40 points, they didn't even want to put them into the playoffs that year. Well, that next year after they won the national championship 2014 because they were saying it's the ACC and they were barely skating by even though they was defending national champion. So I agree. If they're not just, crushing opponents, where it's not even close similar to what they were kind of doing last year, where they had the buzz, until they lost. But they have to beat everybody by a sizable margin, or else, I think it's done. Just going 1-0 don't really do it.
So, Billy, let me ask you this. Let's say Auburn beats a number I believe Washington's ranked number 5. Correct me if I'm wrong. Say Auburn
number 6.
Or they're number 6. Okay, so Auburn beats this number 6 Washington's team, but Washington kind of stumbles. They go 7-5. Maybe 8-4 type of thing. Do you think that this top 10 win kind of weighs them up any? And let's say Auburn, say they lose to Alabama, but then Alabama has a 1 loss to a similar team. Do you think this will give Auburn the edge in the end, or do you think this is just another week 1 game that doesn't mean a lot?
I think it's going to be another week 1 game that don't mean a lot, because if we know anything about college football, the one thing we do know is it's about when you lose, not necessarily all the time who you lose to. It's when you lose. And I think this would be an early win for Auburn. But the committee is also going to look at it like, well, they were playing at home, and that also matters to the committee when they factoring in all this stuff. Were you playing at home? Were you on the road? And 9-6, it's not really that big of a difference in rankings, really. 9-6, that's a toss-up. So I think as long as Alabama has 1 loss, Auburn has no chance, regardless. And Auburn can probably be maybe undefeated, I think, but I doubt they'll be undefeated if Alabama has 1 loss. But if Alabama has 1 loss, I don't think Auburn gets in. Especially early week 1, they're going to have to kill everybody else on their schedule in order for them to get in. I just don't see it, and especially if Washington is 7-5, because now that week 1 win it diminishes a lot, because the committee is going to say, well, Washington isn't who we thought they were, and these are just preseason rankings.
Right.
So no, I don't think it matters.
College football is like those when you watch those movies and it's a small town and it's like a bar and the out-of-towner comes in and he better be, he has to pay for his beer up front and he better be on his, best behavior or he's going to get asked to leave. And then the old favorite comes around. He's like, give me a shot of whiskey and put it on my tab. He gets away with everything. That's college football. If you're Auburn, if you're if you're Alabama, if you're Ohio State, even put Florida State in there, USC, if they can get back in the spotlight, they're going to get away with more slip-up than the new kids on the block. And Auburn is right there in the middle. So the only thing I'm going to say, though, is I'm curious to see there's going to be somebody on that committee that wants to see Bama's downfall. So a one-loss Auburn, especially if they beat or an undefeated Auburn who beat a one-loss Bama, that's the only thing I can see them, and it comes late in the season. That's the only thing I can see somebody in that committee saying, nope, we're leaving them out this year. That's the only thing I can see it taking.
Yeah, they would have to beat Alabama. Have to.
Oh, and I think they would still let Alabama in. They would probably let 2 SEC teams in again. To be honest,
it would all depend on. The only funny thing about that is since they're in the West, it would really depend on what Georgia did. If Georgia, because Georgia doesn't play either one of them, to my understanding, until the conference championship game. So what you would probably have if Auburn beat Alabama and handed them their 1 loss, and then went to the championship game and beat Georgia and handed them their 1 loss.
Well, Auburn and Georgia plays on November 10th.
So they already played? So then you wouldn't. So then that would be the case.
Yeah.
Now, what would be real interesting if Auburn beat Georgia, then Auburn beats Bama, and then Georgia beats Auburn, kind of like we had this year. Well, I think that's the exact thing happened.
That'd be tough.
That's what's going to be interesting. But that's what we talked a couple weeks ago about the importance or lack thereof, however you want to look at it, because it flips and flops of the championship game. Let's picture for a minute. Auburn beats Bama. Auburn beats Georgia. Everybody has 1 loss. Or and then or Auburn already has a loss. So because Auburn beats Bama, they get in the championship game.
Yep,
So Alabama
in the
does it. So Alabama's just going to sit back and chill. So then say just like this year, or I think in one of the years, Georgia beats Auburn. Alabama's like, well, don't mind if I do slide right through here. So that's where it gets kind of one of those crazy things where you beat me, so you go and get the tougher schedule. Kind of like we talked about UCF as well. How did UCF get a national championship by winning one bowl game when you got to win two to win the actual national championship? So it's going to be one of those things, and Alabama's like that kid that even when they fall into a bed of roses, or like that character, what are you going to say it? So even if they lose to Auburn, I still find themselves sitting back in the tournament.
So I'm going to ask you guys a quick yes or no answer. Say that scenario happens. You know, Auburn beats Alabama. Auburn beats Georgia. You know, it's like they all have one loss and they all lose to each other type of thing. Does the BCS let 3 SEC teams in?
No, Auburn gets because they're going to remember how good that championship game was last year. Auburn's going to get the boot just like last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe Auburn to get in. I'll say yes on this one. I believe Auburn gets in. Two teams to get in, but I don't think they'll let 3 in.
All righty. So moving right along here, Virginia Tech versus Florida State. Who, in your guys' opinion, needs this early season win more? Billy, we'll start with you since it's your Florida State.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to go by default. I'm going to say Florida State just because I am a Seminoles fan, and coming off a 7-6 season like we did last year, that can't happen again, which I don't think it will happen again. Francois was just named starting quarterback yesterday. So, you know, if he's anything close to what he was back in 2016, and I think we're going to be in pretty good hands where we beat Michigan in the New Year's Six Bowl. So I'm going to say Florida State, but I will say both of these teams need it to get up to an easy start, to a nice start. Florida State is 19, Virginia Tech is ranked 20. So, you know, like I was saying with Auburn and Washington, the rankings are right there. So theoretically, both teams need this, but for my sake, being a lifelong Seminoles fan, I'm going to say Florida State definitely needs this, especially open up on prime time, the only game that's going to be on that Monday since there's no NFL. Florida State needs to win this game right here, especially with the new coaching staff. I want to see what Taggart is going to bring. He say lethal simplicity. I want to see what that means. So I think Florida State needs to get off to a hot start right here, especially going down that stretch when they're going to play Miami and Clemson, and they still have the SEC juggernaut, not really juggernaut, but the SEC of Florida at the end of the season. So you want to start out fast so you can end good. So I think Florida State here.
Matthew, go ahead.
You know, Billy took all the good points. I'll just kind of sprinkle around it. Yes, they are both 19 and 20. So if we're looking at solely rankings, there should be no pressure at all, to be honest with you. If you look, you're coming in 19-20 and you're playing another ranked team about the same, it's just a measuring stick. It's just say, hey, what should this season expect? And I think that's what Virginia Tech's going to look at it is. It's a measuring stick. You don't expect a lot from us. When you look at that schedule, they do have that Florida State, then they have Notre Dame a little later, and then the second to last game they have Miami. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to get to that 8-win, 9-win team, which is what you kind of expect from your number 20 team. So I think Virginia Tech's just going to look at this like a sparring match. Let's see what we got to do. Let's see how we stand. Let's see where we're at. Let's see what we need to work on before we get on in here and try to get to a decent bowl, try to get a decent ACC ranking or standing. Florida State should be in the same, but due to that name across their chest and that arrow on their head or spear, they're not. Because when you hear Florida State, you think something's got to happen. And when you think, and there's a lot of Florida State fans, there's a lot of people around the area that aren't real sold on Taggart. They are happy to have Francois back. So a lot of pressure's on them. And if you want to get back to where you are, you don't typically lose to Virginia Tech. You save your losses for your Clemsons and Miamis, and that's where you get your bailout. Just like you don't typically lose to Louisville. So I think the pressure solely based on the name on the chest goes to Florida State. Really shouldn't, but it does.
I definitely agree with that. I couldn't put it any better. It means everything, being Florida State, it means everything. You cannot lose to Virginia Tech. Doesn't matter how good they are. You cannot lose to Virginia Tech coming off 7-6. And to Matthew's to something he brought up about Taggart, I was one of those guys, man. I remember when the hire first came through, the first thing I did was call my dad, and I'm like, I don't know if I like this move or not, because I'm not sure who Taggart really is. He haven't done much. Even at Oregon the year before, he wasn't really that great. So I come in and I think, well, what is he going to do at Florida State? Most of your recruiting class left because Jimbo Fisher. A lot of them was only committed just because of Jimbo Fisher. He fired the whole entire staff. Nobody was left except for the defensive line coach and Odell Higgins. He's the only one from that staff that they retained. So to me, I'm anxious to see what he's going to bring to the table. And that's the only game I'm going to have to watch on Monday, and I'm definitely going to be tuned in. But I definitely, to Matthew's point, it's the name on the chest. They definitely have the more pressure. And it's a conference game. So you definitely don't want to fall not just 0-1 in the rankings. You definitely don't want to fall 0-1 in conference standings. So
right.
I think this is a big game for Florida State.
And nothing against Florida State fans, because this goes to every powerhouse blue blood fan, whatever you want to put it. When you lose unexpectedly, you look for excuses. You look for things to rest your head on, things to hang your hat on. When you have a Jimbo Fisher, when you have well, he's in trouble now, but an Urban Meyer prior to this year, when you have a Nick Saban, we talked about at the beginning of the show, you say, hey, it's okay. So when you have a young guy, a new coach, a Willie Taggart coach at that, it's not like you went out and got, you stole Kirby Smart from Georgia. You got a guy with some question marks. You don't have that to hang your hat on, because now the fear comes around. You don't say, well, we got Willard Taggart, so we're fine. No, you're like, uh-oh, what is going to happen?
Exactly.
And he's not going to get the benefit of that. We talked about with the committee. They give Alabama, they give Ohio State, they give these teams these benefits of the doubt. When you're Willie Taggart, you're basically back at Western Kentucky in the eyes of fans.
You got to win.
When you lose,
you got to win.
When you lose one, and you got to win everything, and you got to, because most of your fans don't do the homework. They just say, hey, this is Virginia Tech. Forget the fact that they're ranked. Forget the fact, just like I guarantee you, to go back even again, Auburn fans, just your typical Auburn fan who calls in saying, woohoo, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Yeah. Most of your Auburn fans aren't aware that Washington is actually ranked higher than them.
Yep.
They're just saying, hey, we play a Washington team who typically isn't good. We better beat them by a lot. So, and I think that's where fan bases get a lot of things messed up. They sit back and they say, hey, we shouldn't lose to Virginia Tech, even though Virginia Tech might be better. So
they don't keep up with the times.
Exactly. So there's a lot of there's a lot of pressure on the coach. There's a lot of pressure on the university. There's a lot of pressure on the program. It shouldn't be, like I said, they're both ranked equally. This should be a sparring match to see what the next 11 games set up, but it's not, because it's Florida State across the chest. 100-fold the pressure on Florida State than on Virginia Tech.
So just a quick answer from the both of you here. If Florida State loses, does that knock them out of the playoff run?
They're done.
All?
They're done.
They're done?
Yeah.
They're done.
I mean, we just talked so much about how the SEC could potentially have this three-way tie.
2 or 3 teams, Florida
Yeah.
State can't lose to Virginia Tech. Just what Matthew just said. Even though Virginia Tech may be better, they cannot lose to Virginia Tech week 1 with a new coach, because that benefit of the doubt is not going to go to Taggart like it would go to Urban or even a Jimbo Fisher or even Nick Saban. He doesn't have that stature yet, so he can't afford to lose.
If you look at the top 10, there's already an ACC team ahead of Florida State. So I mean, they won't get a chance to make that up.
Clemson and Miami.
Yeah, 2 exactly. There's very good point. They got to play both, so that's going to hurt them. There's 3 or 4 SEC teams that potentially could sneak up there. There's 3 or 4 Big Ten teams that are at least starting ahead of them.
Yep.
So, if they lose, or just throwing them out. No matter, they would have to demolish Miami and Clemson and need a lot of other teams to lose multiple games.
Yep.
All righty, guys. So that's a pretty much the main games happening in college football in this opening week. So let's go ahead and jump into the NFL. NFL's a little under 2 weeks away for their opening season. So we're just going to talk about preseason a little bit more. Matthew, what is your biggest takeaway from the preseason so far?
Well, sorry. I was hoping I would go first because I thought I was going to steal Billy's answer, but Billy kind of alluded to pre-show that we were on different directions. Mine has to be, and maybe it's just the way the channels have set up. I have seen every Cleveland preseason game. And
we're kind of in that market.
I do not think they're going to win 8 games. Yeah. I mean, everything. NFL Network showed it twice. Then they had the Browns versus the Eagles. So I am not sold that they're going to win more than 4 or 5 games. I'm not going to change that fact. So what I am going to say is that this team seems to be trying. You ever had like a vacation or a big thing at work planned up, and you feel that?
Watch your mouth, Matthew. Watch your mouth.
you ever had like something? You ever had something coming up, and you're like, man, I can't wait for that, or that's very important to me, and then you start feeling that flu come on, and you're trying to fight it like crazy. You're taking vitamins and the orange juice.
You drink your tea.
Yeah, you're doing everything you can to shake off that voodoo that's coming. That's what I see when I watch these Browns. They know that they have history against them, and they are trying, whether it be Jarvis Landry making big plays, Callaway coming in, Josh Gordon looks like he might escape some of the troubles. I'm not sure exactly. Even Landry on the field making big plays too, and hyping up the locker room on Hard Knocks. And even we even talked about it. Tyrod Taylor having a vicious-looking injury that we just assumed was going to take him out.
You text me as soon as it happened.
Taking him out for months was back the next drive. Baker Mayfield, who looks like Manziel, who you think Manziel's out there, but making plays. Nick Chubb is trying to do things. Duke Johnson's trying to do things. Draw a blank on the other running back they got from San Francisco. They're trying to make Hyde and Myles Garrett and Jabril Pepper. They're trying to make plays, and they're winning games 5-0, and they're winning here, losing here. But the main takeaway I get is they know that Cleveland Brown flu is coming. They're just trying to do everything they can to fight it off. And the best remedy is win. So they can pop out 2 wins in the first 5 seasons, or the first 5 games.
First 5 seasons.
We'll see. The first 5 seasons, yeah, that's what it's looking. If they can pop 2 games, if they can pop 2 wins the first 5 or 6 games of the season, I'm just saying, maybe that can finish for a nice. What I think will help the Browns too, and they have to keep this in sight. They're building for something bigger. I know you guys have them at 8 wins and in the playoffs and yada yada, but they're building for something bigger. I think they're going to really impress, almost like San Francisco did last year. When week 11, week 12 comes, they're probably already going to be 3-8. And then they start playing teams that are, for lack of a better term, tanking or giving up. Well, you got a team in Cleveland that says we can't afford, our fan base can't afford to give up and tank. We've already tried, quote-unquote, tanking, and it's worked out pretty horrible. So I think that's when you're going to see Cleveland's biggest upside is after everything's done, after they're theoretically eliminated from the playoffs, and mathematically even at that, they're going to, when everybody's like, we're done, put in the backup, let's see what that rookie quarterback can do, that's when Cleveland's really going to hit their stride. And then the next year is when I can say, watch out, see something for Cleveland. But as far as the preseason takeaway, it has to be Cleveland trying to shave off and push back that smog that is their history coming at them.
All right, Billy,
before last night, Matthew, we were probably going to have the same exact answer as we always do. But then I get, I'm surfing. Then I see Odell Beckham is probably going to be, well, he is now. I went on Instagram this morning. He's already on there signing his contract. But Odell Beckham getting, that 5-year, $95 million max deal, it was $65 million guaranteed, which was more than Mike Evans, who I think had $55 million guaranteed. to me, that's the biggest takeaway because, as he said, I was just watching the Browns, and yeah, they like pushed it down your throat all the time, and maybe because you know they had Baker and they were on Hard Knocks, so you know they kind of, I guess they were kind of showing the Hard Knocks team mostly all the games, even they were playing reruns all the time on NFL Network. So I was going to talk about the Browns, of course, but Odell Beckham being a high-paid receiver, which I think that he deserves that. My only thing is coming off that injury, and they decided to give him that before the season started. But because the preseason is the preseason, my next biggest takeaway of the preseason would be all these injuries that's going on. To allude what I was saying earlier, as soon as Tyrod went down, Matthew texted me like he may be done. And I said immediately, yeah, that looks like a break. He probably broke that in several different places. What happened? He ran back out there the next play, just a dislocation. So to me, injuries and Odell Beckham is probably the biggest takeaway from the preseason. How many guys have went down this preseason? And that kind of hurts football. Yeah, it hurts it hurts the regular season game. And it hurts my fantasy team because especially when you draft early and you pick somebody up and then they get hurt literally the next week. So for me, injuries, Odell Beckham is probably the biggest takeaways. Now, Matthew, I got to address this because you're talking about my Browns, very disrespectful. I think that we can get at least, at the very least, 2 out of the first 5 games. We start out at home against the Steelers. That could definitely be a trap game. We don't know what Le'Veon Bell's temperament is going to be. Big Ben, he wants to retire every other week. If he has one of those games, who knows? Antonio Brown is probably, to me, going to be the one guy that I know on that team that's going to be ready to go. Then the next week, we're at the Saints. That may be a loss on the road, but then we come right back the next week against the Jets. Do we really think the Jets are that good of a team playing on the road?
No.
And they're either going to have either Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold or Josh McCown. Neither one of those guys really say, oh, yeah, they're going to be worth something. Then we play the Raiders on the road. Who knows what the Raiders are going to be? John Gruden is back. His first year is coaching in this league. And then we play the Ravens at home. I think that's another win. Joe Flacco or Lamar Jackson, I don't think any one of those teams got it. So we have a real potential to really be 3-2 coming after week 5. Who knows? So 4 wins, I think that's a little low.
Oh my goodness.
4 wins, and then we go play home against the Chargers. Phillip Rivers is sometimes he's a hit or miss. Is Keenan Allen fully recovered? Is he going to be what he was back in 2014, 2015? So 3-2 after week 5 is really realistic right here. 4 wins for the whole season, I think that's a tad bit low. I think you're selling this a little bit short there.
I mean, considering that they have 4 wins since the beginning of 2016, I think we're right on par. I think that's
old news.
Oh my.
This
show has been dedicated to old news, to Alabama getting in off what they've done historically, the pressure being on Florida State because what they've done historically. So it's only fair that I continue to judge the Browns on what they've done historically.
And speaking of history,
3-2 after week 5, I'm calling it 3-2 after week 5.
The Jets game is winnable. That's 1. I think you have a chance on stealing 1 somewhere along the line. Maybe it is the Raiders or Ravens, one of the 2. And then I think the final 3, I think you win 2 of the final 3 when you play a Ravens team that could be out of contention, a Bengals team that will probably be out of contention, and a Broncos team that may be out of contention. I think you can win 2 of those 3, and then I think throughout the other weeks you might sneak 1 up. But
I think we can get the Buccaneers as well. Jameis going to be just coming back.
Hey, but here's the thing, and he's playing a lot this preseason to make up for it, so I wouldn't use that just coming back. I'm telling you,
he's a high turnover guy. He's a high turnover guy. Go ahead.
Good luck creating turnovers this season. We'll see. But all I'm saying is, I get where you're coming from. You're optimistic. You're dreaming. I love it. But be careful, because if you start 0-1 versus the Steelers, very possible. Start 0-2 versus the Saints, very possible. If you start 0-3 versus the Jets, 1 or 2 wins might be realistic.
If we lose to the Jets, all bets are off. I'm just saying right now, all bets are off.
Okay.
If we at home to the Jets, I just don't see it as a loss.
Hey, I think the Jets
correct,
defense. I think the Jets defense are going to. I think if at the end of the year there's a team that there's a group of players that surprise somebody, it's either going to be the Browns offense, which is really as silly as that sounds because of the weapons they got, but you got to play the game, or the Jets defense. The Jets defense could be that. Oh, I didn't think they would be that good. The Jets defense is going to win you a fantasy game somewhere along the line. And if they go Teddy, maybe he's just a game manager enough with Anderson at receiver. I'm drawing a blank on one of the running backs that they got that everybody likes in the fantasy league. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that. Look, I'm not saying the Jets are going to be a playoff team. They're not even going to compete for that division. But we're talking on the most important game, probably on both those teams' schedule. Week 3, Jets Browns is ugly for the loser.
I definitely agree with that. The loser is probably definitely not going to be in a good spot, especially with the Browns having to face the Steelers and the Saints in week 1 and 2. That could really tell everything, because you start the season off 0-2. Now people are starting to say, well, I mean, here we go again.
One quick trivia. Can you name me the 2 times in Cleveland Browns history? Or okay, let me rephrase this. Since in our lifetime, can you name the 3 times that the Browns have more than 8 wins?
I can't, honestly. Let's see.
I was just looking. It's 07, they went 10-6. 02, they went 9-7, and 94, they went 11-5. So
I was going to say 2010. So, but yeah, I was a little bit off on that one.
2010,
but it was
no, though. 2010 was the last
Brady
time.
Quinn year.
When 2010?
Yeah,
sounds.
It may have been. Who knows with those guys? 2010 was the last time they did not finish dead last in their division, and they went 5-11.
We're changing the culture, though. We're changing the culture.
Okay.
This year's the year.
Just the year.
Mark my
words.
words.
I got them in the playoffs. I don't have them in the playoffs, but I think they're going to be better than a lot of these people are giving us 4 wins and 3 wins. I think we're going to be way better than that.
All righty, guys.
Well, I'm not going to address playoffs.
Playoffs. Talk about playoffs.
Yeah. On the Browns, playoffs.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us today. We are going to be off for the rest of the week, so join us on Tuesday at 9:45 on the AM East Coast time. Billy, where can people find your podcast?
Spotify, iTunes, Radio Public, Google Play. I will be on today, so you guys will be getting a show today. Make sure you tune in. I normally do it every single weekday. This week it was kind of slow, so I'm just gradually putting stuff in there. Next week we're going to be back full force Monday through Friday, anywhere, any major podcasting sites. Come join me.
All righty, guys. Be sure to follow and rank that podcast as well. That's Unpopular Opinion. As always, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Have a good day.
All right. Take it easy.